Hello and welcome to Tricks of the Trade channel. Today is the 20th of June 2018, and we're actually going to be putting this video up on Tricks of the Trade 2 because we do not know if we're going to be uploading any more videos to Tricks of the Trade. And over the past couple, I think, of months and weeks, we've always been telling people who are interested in the truth that they should subscribe to Tricks of the Trade 2 because we do not know if a channel, Tricks of the Trade, is going to be shut down by the Vatican because they've landed 2 strikes on that particular account or channel rather. So like we've always said, if you've been on Tricks of the Trade for a long time, we've always said that we're not really interested in the number of subscribers. So even though Tricks of the Trade 2 presently just has a few subscribers right here, we're really not interested in the number because what we care about is the truth. And even if we were to have maybe like we've always said on all our videos, even if we have 10 subscribers who are dedicated to the truth, then that will suffice, because we're not here for the public. We're here for those who are really interested in the truth. So we may not upload any other channels, we will not upload any other videos to Tricks of the Trade, and that will serve as just an old channel for now. And we'll be uploading new videos for the people who are really interested in the truth to be on this channel. So that means if you're watching Tricks of the Trade 2, that means you must have been on Tricks of the Trade. So because we're going to be continuing from there. If the channel gets shut down by the Vatican sooner or later, then we'll be uploading all our old videos from that channel to Tricks of the Trade 3 until we get our website in order, because like I said before in the last video, we're not in a hurry to do that website because it's going to be something that's never existed before. We want to create a platform in which we can talk about so many other things and have maybe like live videos for those who are interested in maybe getting to see my face, but hopefully I don't think that will be necessary. But it'll be a live video in the sense that you can hear me talk and I'll take questions and answers, and it's going to be a different kind of platform that has never existed before for those who are interested in the truth. So if you're on Tricks of the Trade 2 and you're watching this particular video right now, we do expect that you've been on Tricks of the Trade before you've been on here, because a lot of the things that I'm saying we're not going to be going over and over and over again. We'll expect that you understand already because you've been on Tricks of the Trade for a very long time. So it's your first time on the channel. There shouldn't be no first timers, but if you happen to be a first time on our channel, we'd like to welcome you. We'll refer you to go watch Tricks of the Trade first. Watch the primer video. I'll show you how to get to the primer video in a second or two, and go to Tricks of the Trade and watch and get up on speed on a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about, because this video is titled The Heart, the Blood, and the Trained Broadcasting Network. The reason why the title is that way is because what I'm going to be saying on this video is something that I started sharing on the video called The Curse of Veganism. That means if you're trying to be vegan, we explained on that particular video that it was a curse. So we would expect that you must have watched that particular video before you got on this particular video to watch it. So in any case, I'm always going to point everybody to the primer video, because it's the most important video, just in case there happens to be a subscriber on Tricks of the Trade 2 who's never been on Tricks of the Trade, so they can have a basic foundation of how to watch the videos and get along with it. So let me point you guys, if you're a new subscriber, to the primer video first, which you ought to watch before you continue watching this video. For first time subscribers, the primer video will be the oldest video on this particular channel. It has a playlist called Primer. So if you get on Tricks of the Trade, you'll still find the playlist Primer. If you get on Tricks of the Trade 2, you'll still find the playlist also called Primer. So when you click on a video, and I mean on any video that we have, there is a link in the description section. I'm going to show you where that link leads you to. But for the first time subscribers, we advise that you watch the primer video called Primer right here. And there's other like 3 or other videos on the playlist which we suggest that you should watch also before you can continue watching any of our videos. Otherwise, you're not going to be understanding what we're saying. You're not going to have a firm foundation to understand what the videos are all about, and you're going to have a lot of unanswered questions, and it'll lead you into so many ways. And besides that, we always advise that you get our book, which is the most important thing that you should get in from watching any of our videos. The book is the most important thing because we've condensed all our history and so much information, because when we get to make the videos, like for example, this video is going to be a very long video, so we don't like making long videos. And secondly, on the videos, we can talk about things exhaustively enough because of the length of time. We don't want you to lose interest just, sitting and watching a very long video. That's why we put all the information in our book, because a lot of things that I'm going to be saying also, it's going to be related to the book as well. The book, like we've said before, is one of the most we would say this with all humility, is that it's like one of the things that you need if you're really interested in the truth, because we go into so much details. The videos don't do enough justice for anything that we talk about, but when you get the book, you can always have a reference that you can go back to. But since we're making videos, we may have so many videos, and the videos we can go into in-depth detail because there are certain things we can talk about on the videos for the mere fact that the Vatican is going to censor it, and they're going to say that, they're going to come up with so many other ways to say that we are not saying things properly, or we are harming the population, or we're harassing or bullying people. They have so many excuses for censoring free speech. So that's why we put all this information in the book, so you can have it at your own palms, and when you have questions, you can always refer to the book and you get your answers. So we suggest that you get the book. We'll leave all our contact information on the screen for you to do that. So now, continuing on, like we said before, for our first-time subscribers, you should go through this playlist called Primer and watch all the other videos that are in that particular playlist. And for every video that we have on our channel, there's a link in the description section. I'm hovering my mouse right over it. If you click on this link, it's going to take you to a document. The document is called Male versus Female Visual Differences. We advise that you download this document and study it for your own self and keep it handy, so that you can know the visual differences between male and female, because this is something that's not taught in schools, because the Vatican controls the educational system. And we do suggest that if you're a parent, that you should teach your children, mostly make out time to teach your children stuff at home so they understand what's going on in the world. Because if we leave our children to the Vatican and the educational system to teach them, they're going to come out the way that we see them on TV nowadays, and that's always going to go wrong. So for our first-time subscribers, please download this document and study for your own. And since we're going to be in the transvestigation of the people that we're going to be talking about on this particular video in a short while, we just have to go through this document really quick to show you the visual differences between male and female. So to the left of a screen, you're looking at a female, and a female is designed to give birth. So because the female is designed to give birth, her skeletal structure is also designed to give birth. And because of that, a female has a pelvis that's tilted forward, as you can see in this particular document. So the female pelvis is tilted forward, and because of that pelvic tilt, there is an arch in a female's back. The arch is extra support to distribute the weight of pregnancy across the body, so that the lady doesn't have any problem walking, hurting herself, or hurting her baby. So that's why a female has an arch in her back, because of the tilted pelvis that's forward. So if you draw an arch on a female's back, all right, you can draw the arch from below the shoulder blades. It's going to form a deep C arch in the back. If you draw it from high above the shoulder blades, it's going to form an S-shaped arch in the back. So that's why a female's back is shaped that way. So I want you to remember those two letters for a female's back. It's shaped like a C or shaped like an S when you're trying to determine the gender of someone. Now for males, males have a straight back because the pelvis of a man is not tilted forward like that of a female, because a male will never give birth. A male is not designed to give birth, and it will never ever happen in the history of mankind that a man gives birth. So that's why the pelvis of a man is straight. So because of that, the back of a man is also straight. There's no arch in the back. So if a man's back wants to arch, it's going to arch outwards like you see right here in the shape of a D or a P, but it's going to be a straight back into the pelvis. So I want you to remember those two letters. A D-shaped back for a man, or a P-shaped back for a man, but a straight back, and a C-shaped back for a woman, or an S-shaped back. Now, a lot of people come on the channel and try to get into asking us questions like, for example, why don't we use the secondary male or female characteristics to determine the gender of someone? you have to understand that secondary male and female characteristics is always based on the primary skeletal difference between male and female. So if you don't get the primary right, the primary skeletal structure, and determine that this gender is male or female, you're going to get the secondary wrong, because the reason is the Vatican, which is so concerned about making us weak so they can control us, because it's the first civilization of humankind that is so much concerned with making the population weak so that they can control us. They feed us hormones in the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, in the clothing we wear. So right from conception, we are infected, we are bombarded with so much hormones such that the secondary male and female characteristics do not line up anymore. So for example, you'll notice that females can speak with a very deep masculine voice like I am speaking right now. You'll notice that females will have facial hair and females will have an Adam's apple. But their skeletal structure remains feminine, because nothing can change the skeletal structure once it's determined at conception. That's how from dead remains of human bones you can determine the sex or gender of someone, because nothing can change the skeletal structure. The same with a man as well. Okay, you find out that with all the hormones that we're being fed, some men do not grow facial hair, some men do not grow an Adam's apple, some men have some sort of fatty tissue in their chest, and some men speak with feminine voices, because all our foods are being poisoned. Why are all our foods being poisoned so much? Because none of us is growing the food that we eat anymore. So whatever they say is food, we just accept it to be so, and we take it. So the system has been designed in such a way to make us weak, and they're feeding us hormones regularly and daily. So if you go after the secondary female and male characteristics and try to determine the sex or gender of someone, especially also based on the fact that the Vatican is hard at work making sure that they're taking young children as babies, and then they're manufacturing or feeding these children hormones and babies hormones, and making them, forcing them to live in a sex and gender that's different from the sex and gender they were born with. Some of these people will come out with the secondary male and female characteristics, but they are not really male or female. So that's what's happening. So on our channel, you have to go after the skeletal structure, because that's the only way you can be sure of someone's gender. If you're going off of all of that secondary male or female characteristics, for example, they say long arms, long ring or index fingers, which is actually false. It doesn't exist. A female can have her ring or index finger longer than the other. It doesn't make her to be a different gender. What determines the gender is the skeletal structure. So for example, the female skeletal structure is designed to give birth, and because of that, a female has hips below her crotch, an arch in her back, a wide pubic arch, and a tilted pelvis forward, which makes her to be able to give birth. So that is what determines if you're female. It has nothing to do with your ring or index fingers. It doesn't have anything to do if your arms are long or not. It doesn't have anything to do if your torso is long or short. It doesn't have anything to do with if you have an Adonis belt, an Adam's apple, you're growing facial hair, you have a slanting forehead, a big skull. It has nothing to do with that. Your skeletal structure determines if you're male or female, and the female skeletal structure is designed to give birth, and that's what differentiates the sexes. So when you come up on a channel, you have to make sure that you're sticking to the skeletal structure. If you go left or right or center into the male and female secondary characteristics on our channel, we block you for slandering, because that's exactly what you're doing. We haven't changed, and we'll never change just because we're in Tricks of the Straight 2. So let's scroll forward into the document just to show you a little bit more of those differences. Sorry, right here you can see there's a female kneeling down. She has a deep C arch in her back because her pelvis is tilted forward. It doesn't matter if the female's got muscles, she works out in the gym, is on a ton of steroids. Nothing can change the skeletal structure of a male to female or female to male. There's always going to be an arch in the back for every woman and a tilted pelvis forwards, because that's what makes you female and gives you the ability to give birth. So your size doesn't matter as well. It doesn't matter if you're tall or short. There is nothing that can change the skeletal structure, except maybe you have some sort of let's say for a female, you had some sort of accident or spinal injury, but regardless, you're still going to have a pelvis tilted forward and your hips are still going to be below the crotch. So regardless of size, you're looking at a female right here. She's a big female to the left of her screen. She has an arch in her back and her pelvis is tilted forward. Another female to the right of her screen, arch in her back and her pelvis is tilted forward. A muscular female here, and still the same thing goes on. Arch in her back, and nothing can change the skeletal structures. Let me go play you guys a clip to know exactly where the location of a female hip is at, so we can continue on with this particular video. So here is the clip that I want to play, and playing this clip shows you how females are measured into clothes and how their hips are measured, so you would know. The female hip is always going to be below the crotch. It's below the crotch so that the hips can be out of the way when a female is about to give birth. And this is how every woman's hips is measured across the world, and how her clothes are sewn so that she can fit into. So you have to understand that, for example, that there are so many, let's say, cloth makers around the world, and they sew women clothes and ship it to different countries. If they did not know the location of the female hip based on the clothes they're sewing, a lot of the clothes that are shipped around the world would not fit the women that wear it. Why? Because you would have varying degrees and places for determining where the location of the female hip is in the dress, and that wouldn't work. But all females' clothes are sewn in such a way that the location of the hips have to be below the crotch so that the female clothes can fit. So that's what you're looking at on screen right now, because for example, so many channels give you the idea that there's such a thing as a shoulder to hip ratio that determines if you're male or female. There is no such thing. The location of the female hip is below the crotch. The location of the male hip is above his crotch. That's what makes you either female or male. The location of the hip. It's either below the crotch and makes you female, or it's above the crotch and makes you male. So that's what you're looking at the screen right here, as this female is going to be measured into these clothes, or measured her hips rather. As you can see, the tape goes round, and the location of that tape is below the crotch. The female has a wide pubic arch. The pubic arch is the space in between the crotch so that a baby can come out of the womb when a female is ready to give birth. So because of that wide pubic arch, which does exist here, it makes everything in the female pelvis to be farther apart in the body. So because of that, the female hips are wider. All right, that gives that woman the hourglass figure that you all see with all females, because of the wider hips that's below the crotch. Now, because of that, a female has an acute Q angle. The Q angle is the angle between the hip and the knee, and for females it starts below the crotch. For males it will start above the crotch. So this female is going to turn around from the back so you can see that location of the hip and the Q angle from the back. And I always suggest, in all your investigations of trying to determine the gender of someone in a very confused world in which the Vatican has left us in, if you get a picture of someone and you're confused about looking at the person from the front to determine if the sex and gender of the person is either male or female, try to see if you can find a picture of the person from the back, because once you see any woman or man from the back, you're going to know exactly that this is male and that's female, because of how acute the Q angle shows from the back. So this is a female right here, and in females, the Q angle and the hips are slightly just above the bum line but below the crotch from the front. If this person was a man, this Q angle will be farther away from this bum line, and you would know that this is male. Let me show you an example. So here is the example I wanted to show you guys to prove what I'm saying. So what we're looking at is the a back picture of Iggy Azalea. Iggy Azalea is believed to be a very beautiful woman by the public, but Iggy Azalea is not actually the gender that she claims. For more of Iggy Azalea, you can get on Tricks of the S-Trade and look for the video called Iggy Azalea. Who is Iggy Azalea? We have a part 1 and a part 2 over there, which we make all that analysis, and we also have an imposter hip series featuring Iggy Azalea. So get on the channel, look for either the imposter hip series playlist or look for who is Iggy Azalea on Tricks of the S-Trade, which we get into details about showing you or who Iggy Azalea really is. So what you're looking at is the bum line of Iggy Azalea right here. If you notice, the Q angle of Iggy Azalea from the back is so far away from this bum line. Why is that the case? Because Iggy is 100% male. So that's why the Q angle is so far away from this bum line. Because if Iggy Azalea was female, the Q angle would be right around here. But it doesn't exist because Iggy Azalea is 100% female. So that's what I wanted to show you as an example. Let's continue on with the video. So just for comparison purposes, so I'm pulling this video picture of Iggy Azalea to the right so you guys can see the difference of what it looks like to be a female or a mutilated male, in this case in Iggy Azalea. So here's a female right here. You can see the Q angle right here starts just slightly above this bum line right here. Slightly above it, not so much far away from the back. While in Iggy Azalea's case right here, you can see that here's the bum line and it's so far away up. So far away, not as close as it should be for a female right here, depending on the distance. So see how far it is for Iggy Azalea, because Iggy Azalea is male, a mutilated male who actually believes that she is female, a product of the Vatican. So let's continue on with the video finally. So the people we're featuring on this particular video today happens to be people from the Trinity Broadcasting Network. Trinity Broadcasting Network is a very popular Christian channel which a lot of people love watching. I myself, I used to watch Trinity Broadcasting Network as well. But getting to find out that, you know, our lives have been controlled by the Vatican from the get-go, right from the day that we're born till the day we die. We've looked into so many different things and trying to make those people who are interested in the truth to know that a lot of the deceptions that's going on, that's planned by the Vatican against us, because the Vatican is so much interested in controlling us and controlling our mindset. Because I've talked about the fact before that a man's mind is the most powerful tool in the world. And through history, through what they say, what we read, and what we hear, our minds are controlled. And I've talked about the fact before that the end game here is to make sure that you pick a side. It's a fight for your souls. So the fight is going to make you choose if you're going to choose God or you're going to choose, you know, the devil. And a lot of people are not aware of this. They're living in a very deluded world, and they're not understanding what's going on around them because they're only fixated on what they see. And some people are very, very, afraid of the Vatican as well. Very, very much afraid of everything. And I have to make you understand that if you're living in fear, because the only person that we are asked to fear according to the Bible, which is the most beautiful piece of, work that has been ever, the greatest book of all time that has ever been written. The only person that the Bible tells us to fear is God Almighty. So, but a lot of people are living in so much fear such that they can't even dare to, stand up for what they believe in. And it begs to ask the question, if you can't stand up for what you believe, what do you really believe then? Because if you love someone, this is the best way I can put it. If you love your daughter, your son, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a husband, a wife, you're always going to stand up for them if it's someone you love, all right? So if you say that you love the truth, why are you so afraid? Why are you living in fear? Because you have no reason to be afraid of the Vatican. You have no reason to be afraid of a man. The only person you should be afraid of is God Almighty. And let me show you something very particular in the Bible, speaking about fear, that's going to make that made me understand that none of us should be living in fear of anything, because once you live in fear, you're living in unbelief. And let me show you that. So here's a portion of the Bible that I read one time while doing so many studies, studying history and everything else, and it's from Revelations chapter number 21. I'm reading from the Geneva Bible. I'm reading from chapter number 2. It says in verse 8, chapter number 2 of Sorry, did I say chapter number 2? I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I'm reading from Revelations chapter number 21. And we're going to read from verse 8. So I say that again. I'm reading from Revelations chapter number 21. And I'm reading from verse 8. Chapter number 21, Geneva Bible. And I'm reading from verse 8. Okay? It says, "But the fearful and unbelieving, and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone." Now, I've talked about the fact before, when you get a book, we get into full explanation of making you understand that fire and brimstone, the lake of fire that we hear, that the Bible talks about, is what you're seeing in the volcanic eruptions that's going around what they call the second Pacific Ring of Fire. We explain that very much well in our book, so you get to understand that the second Pacific Ring of Fire indicates a lake of fire, as the Bible talks about, that the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone. Now, why am I reading this particular portion of the Bible to you? Is because of the people who are afraid. Because there are some people who are so much afraid of the truth that they're not even going to make an attempt. Because I always tell this, I'll say this to a lot of people. I'm not saying that you should go around, trying to force people to listen to you. All right. But when you have a chance, all right, to speak, maybe someone asked you a question, is trying to get an answer for something, you should not be afraid to tell them the truth. You should not be afraid of how they're going to be looking at you. You should not be afraid to stand up for the truth at any point in time. Now, I'm not saying you should be stupid. I'm saying that you should have a plan, because that's what the Bible always talks about, that you should always be ready to give a good word. So that means you should always have a plan. I'm not saying be stupid, but have a plan when you're starting to speak the truth. Know how you're going to navigate that discourse so somebody understands what you're trying to talk about. You shouldn't go talking to everybody and anybody, because some people don't just need the truth at all. It's for those who are interested in truth, because there are so many people seeking the truth. So you shouldn't be afraid to do what's right for the truth. Have a plan. Always have a plan, and do not be stupid. So another reason why I'm reading this portion is because when you read this portion, you notice that the Bible here in the book of Revelations doesn't even talk about that the first person that's going to be thrown into the lake of fire is going to be the devil. So because, let me explain this for you. Let's say you have maybe 5 cents and you have 10 cents and you have 25 cents in your hands, right? And you have 1 cent also. And you have a small savings box, okay? If the 1 cent is the first coin that you put into your, let me say a piggy bank, let me put it right, a piggy bank, and you drop a 1 cent into your piggy bank. The piggy bank, the 1 cent is going to fall right deep inside. It's going to fall right into the bottom of the piggy bank. So I hope you understand what I'm saying so far. So I say that to explain this particular portion of Revelations chapter number 21 from verse 8. It says, the fearful and unbelieving. It mentions people who are afraid first, that they are going to be the ones who are thrown first into the lake of fire. That means they're going to go down to the very bottom part of the lake of fire, because you have to know the bottom part of every furnace is the hottest part, because the upper part is closer much more to like air, so it's a little bit cooler on the surface, but when you go down deep under, it's going to be very, very hot. So the people who are afraid, because there are people who are living in paranoia every day, they don't want to mention anything or say anything because they're afraid that, one, the government is watching them. They're afraid that the Vatican is going to kill them. They're afraid to even say anything about the truth. If you're living that kind of life, you're afraid to say the truth because you're afraid of the fact that the Vatican is going to come down on you, that the Vatican is going to get you, or the government is going to get you, or that you're going to be thrown in jail, or you're going to get killed, or whatsoever. The Bible does say that you have no portion with God. That's what it says. So once you're living in fear and you can't even mention the truth, that means you do not really believe in the truth. That is a fact. Like I've said before, I'm not saying you should go talk to everybody and anybody. You should have a plan when you're trying to discuss the truth, and discuss for those who are hearers, who want to hear. So if you're afraid, if you're living that kind of life, afraid of anything and everything, being overcautious, you don't actually believe, because the only person that we are called to be afraid of is God, and no man, no Vatican, and no government. So let's continue on and continue back with what I was trying to say on the people that we are talking about today, which happens to be the Trinity Broadcasting Network. We've just labeled this particular video, the heart, the blood, and the Train Broadcasting Network, because it's talking about the people who are behind the Trinity Broadcasting Network. So let's get back into that. So like I was saying, today's feature is about the Trinity Broadcasting Network. And a lot of the so-called people who say that they love God, they're Christians, all listen to the Trinity Broadcasting Network. And little did we know that the Vatican is behind every religion that's going on, that's the focus in our lives today. And Trinity Broadcasting Network happens to be one of the Vatican's tools. So one of the things that you have to notice about Trinity Broadcasting Network is the word Trinity. Now, Trinity has always been associated with the Roman Catholic Church, and a lot of us believe in the Trinity. But do you know that there is nowhere in the Bible that the Bible talks about a Trinity? There is nowhere in the Bible that the Bible says that there are three gods in one person. There is nowhere in the Bible. The only thing the Bible says is that God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are one. He says these three are one, but he didn't say Trinity. And let me just show you guys that so you can have a reference point for this particular video as we're going on. So the portion that I'm referring you guys to is 1 John chapter number 5, and I'm reading from verse number 7. So remember that 1 John chapter number 5 in the Geneva Bible, I'm reading from verse 7. It says, "For there are three which bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these three are one." So he says these three are one. That means, in essence, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost are one person. They are not three different people. I don't know if that's the best way I can explain it so you guys can understand. He says these three are one: the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost. They are one. So it's not talking about a Trinity. What he's saying, that when you hear the Father, and you hear the Word, and you hear the Holy Ghost, that these are one. That means they are one person: the Father, the Word, the Holy Ghost. Okay? So there is no mention of a Trinity anywhere in the Bible. So the idea of a Trinity is actually pagan, which comes from the Roman Catholic Church, which is actually pagan as well. And a lot of people we explain also in the book. When you get the book, you get all those details. That when you go to church, what you're going to is a synagogue of Satan. You're not going to church. Because somebody once sent me an email and said, you do not go to church, but the Bible talks about that we should not forsake the assembling of ourselves. But the person did not read that. The Bible didn't say you should not forsake the assembling of yourselves in church. So that's why people get confused, because that particular portion doesn't say you should assemble in church. It says do not forsake the assembling of yourselves. It didn't say assemble in church. So when you go to church, you're going to what the Bible calls the synagogue of Satan. And some people always get confused when they hear that word, because the synagogue of Satan means exactly that. It's not talking about a synagogue, because synagogue were always associated with Hebrews. But the Bible specifically says synagogue of Satan. So what's the best way I can put it? So let's say, for example, you have a company called Macy's, all right? And the company is called Macy's of Edenwood, okay? That is the company's name, Macy's of Edenwood. Then there's another company that's called Macy's. The company just goes by Macy's. You can't confuse Macy's with Macy's of Edenwood, because they are two different companies. So if the Bible was making reference to a synagogue, all right, he would have said synagogue, but he said synagogue of Satan. So synagogue of Satan is a company, and that refers to the church, the so-called church buildings that you guys walk into. Because when the Hebrews were assembling themselves, as the Bible says, do not forsake the assembling of yourselves, they were assembling in a synagogue or a house or a home of anybody else who invited them to come into that assembly. They were not going to a synagogue of Satan, which is something different. Okay? So people have to understand that a synagogue is not the same thing as a synagogue of Satan. So when you get a book, we get into those fine details for you to understand what's going on. But getting back here to the Trinity Broadcasting Network, we're just going to read some few things about the Trinity Broadcasting Network. So to show you that this network has nothing to do with God, because the people we're going to be featuring are one of the people that the Vatican used to make us believe that the Trinity Broadcasting Network was founded by them, so that we cannot trace back the fact that the Vatican is busy in our daily lives interpreting the Bible for us, instead of allowing the Bible to interpret itself for us. And a lot of people are so deceived, because every time I tell someone that as long as you're going to church, you do not really believe in the Bible. And that is just fact. As long as you're going into a church building and worshiping at a place that's been built and has a name and is a denomination, you are not going to worship God. That's the reason why you've been in that particular position. You've been praying for so long and your prayers are not answered, because you're in the synagogue of Satan. The sooner you realize that and wake up to this reality, the better for you if you say that you're actually a believer. So let's get into the Trinity Broadcasting Network official stats here from this Wikipedia page, which a lot of people hate the fact that I love using Wikipedia. But Wikipedia, as we know, is controlled by the Vatican. But regardless, we're still going to use what they've told us, because they want us to believe in all these false histories that they create, so that we can believe in whatever they want us to believe. Because like I've told you before, history is whatsoever you see, read, or hear. And history is used to control you. So right now, the Vatican is going to give us a false narrative of a Trinity Broadcasting Network. Some people are going to read and believe that, and they'll believe that Trinity Broadcasting Network is actually doing the work of God. And you know, the devil is, let me just make people understand this. The devil is a very intelligent being, all right? Very, very intelligent. So do not think for a second that the devil is not intelligent. He's a very intelligent, black, woolly-haired man. He is, all right? But here is the problem that the devil has. The devil is a created being. And all created beings cannot have more knowledge than the person who created them. So let me give you a typical example. Let's say that you are, some sort of, let's say, engineer, all right? and you created a very intelligent car, there is no way in the world that that car can have more knowledge than you who created it. So that's just the way life works. The devil is very, very intelligent, but he cannot be more intelligent than the person who made him. Does it make sense? So all this is how the Vatican, uses. The Vatican structures so much intelligence into a lot of the things to control your mindset, for the devil. Because like I've said before, when you get on a channel, you're going to hear a lot of things. You're going to hear about the myth of white supremacy, or the myth of whiteness, that being white is not a race, is not a color. It only means that you have a lack of melanin. If you're interested in that, get on the channel Tricks of the S-Trade and look for the Myth of Whiteness playlist and play all that. You probably hear the fact that we're all black on this channel, which is the truth. You probably hear the fact that black people are degraded everywhere in the world. And you hear about the Vatican as well, and so many other things. Like I've always said, do not get lost in all of that information, because the whole emphasis is trying to make you understand that all the information that we present and we're making you come to the reality of is trying to make you choose a side. Is a fight for your souls. So do not get lost in that. Always know that the whole information that you're hearing is making you choose a side, because your soul is the most important thing in this world. And that's why all these lies and deception are created, to make you pick a side. So let's get back into reading some of these fine stats from the Trinity Broadcasting Network. Like I said before, this is going to be a long video, so if you can't sit through a long video, do not attempt to watch this video at all. Just stop and just exit. So it says that the Trinity Broadcasting Network is an international Christian-based broadcast television network operating as an independent entity. TBN is also the world's largest religious television network. TBN was headquartered in Costa Mesa, California until March 3, 2017. Now, that's the Vatican Code of Numbers right there. If you're interested in the Vatican Code of Numbers, get on the channel on Tricks of the S-Trade and look for the video called the Lisa Lopes or Lisa Lopez video, spell L-O-P-E-S, or look for the playlist called Vatican Code of Numbers. I'm not going to get into too much detail on that. And for if you want to get the best information on the Vatican Code of Numbers, then get our book. I still suggest, I still say it every day, is one of the most important books that you'll ever have, because we believe that we made people, we've put all our hard work together to make people to understand their world better, and the book is going to help you. So if you're not getting the book, you're missing out on so much. We're not just trying to sell you a book. Like we've always talked about in so many videos, it's not just a book, it's a concealed mystery. Do not be a fan. That means you're just watching history, reading and hearing it as we're speaking right now. Become a player. Own it. All right. Okay. So let's get back into this. It says TBN was headquartered in Costa Mesa, California until March 3, 2017, when it was so highly visible office park. The broadcaster will retain its Tustin facilities, auxiliary studios, facilities are located in Irving, Texas, and Hendersonville, Tennessee, Gadsden, Alabama, Decatur, Georgia, Miami, Florida, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Orlando, Florida, and New York City. TBN broadcast programs hosted by a diverse group of ministries from evangelical, traditional, Protestant, and Catholic denominations, non-profit charities, Messianic, Jewish, and Christian media personalities. You see how they hide this stuff right here? Right? They just, and look at how they mention this. I want you to pay specific attention, all right? They put it somewhere down the line so that you don't understand that it's the Roman Catholic Church that runs everything. So when you go, when you scroll further into this particular history about TBN, it says the Trinity Broadcasting Networks was co-founded in 1973 by Paul Crouch and Assemblies of God ministers. So that means Paul Crouch, who founded TBN, came from Assemblies of God. So if he came from Assemblies of God, that means the Vatican controls the Assemblies of God Church as well, because like we've talked about, the Vatican controls all religion in this world. Organized or unorganized is all run by the Vatican. So who are we featuring at this particular point? So the person we are featuring today is Paul Crouch. We're going to be featuring Paul Crouch, and we're also going to be featuring Matt Crouch, who's the current president, because Paul Crouch passed on or died a couple of years back, and his so-called son Matt Crouch now runs TBN. We're also going to be featuring somebody by the name of Stephen Fortichik. I don't know if that's the pronunciation of the name. Stephen Fortichik is he's a pastor of a church called the Elevation Church. You probably watched it on TBN as well. And with the people that we're featuring today, I want to thank a very special subscriber for bringing this to our attention. I want to thank Amy once and again, and for always looking out and spotting the people that maybe we missed out. You're doing a fine job, Amy, and we thank you for that. I haven't forgotten about you, and I'll never forget about you. So those are the people that we're featuring today, and that's why this particular video is called The Heart, the Blood, and the Trained Broadcasting Network. So since I've made you guys to know the people we'll be featuring today, now the topic of discussion, because the video is aptly titled The Heart, the Blood, and the Trained Broadcasting Network. The question we now have to ask is, what are we talking about in the blood and the heart? Now, like I said before, if you're watching this video, you need to have watched the video called The Curse of Veganism, in which we featured Billy Graham on that particular video. Now, on this particular video, the reason for talking about the blood and the heart is because over the years, being that I listened to so much, so-called speakers or so-called people who call themselves men of God, all right? I hate that word, man. I hate that word so much. I don't even know how to explain it. Once I hear that word, it seems like I want to get off. There is no such thing as a man of God. There's no such thing as men of God. What the Bible calls us is children of the Most High God. So do not let anybody stand in your face and tell you that he's a man of God and feed you a crock of nonsense. Okay? There's nobody that's a man of God. We are all children of the Most High. So getting back to what I was saying, when I was, listening to a lot of preaching, and because I was always very fascinated by the Bible, I was also I've always said this before, I was very, very fascinated about life, trying to understand life. When I read so many of the stories of the Bible, we used to be stories to me, but I've just found out that we're not stories. They are actually reality, because the Bible is literal. It's not symbolic in any way. The Bible only uses language when it's trying to describe something in the future that the writers of the Bible or the people whom God was showing these things to did not have words in their own time to explain it, and they would use some sort of language which to us looks like it's some sort of symbolism. The Bible is literal from Genesis to Revelation. It's not symbolic in any way. So getting back to what I was trying to say, listening to so many speakers and being fascinated with life, trying to understand what does it mean to be alive, what makes us alive, because it's one of the most basic questions that I always ask. What makes you alive? Can you spot the thing? Can you identify what makes you alive, besides the fact that we have the symbolisms of life, for example, that we breathe, we get up, we eat? What makes us alive? What is the real you? Can anybody see and touch that? Because nobody can explain what makes us alive. Now, one of the things that I read while trying to understand what makes us alive is that I read some portions in the Bible which came up and told us that the blood is the life. And I never used to understand it. Why would the Bible say that the blood is the life? When the Bible says the blood is the life here, it's in reference to anything that's an organism living in this world, that it's the blood that is the life of that living organism. Because as human beings, we are not just flesh and blood. We also have what they call a soul and a spirit. The soul, as according to the so many people that I've heard and I've listened to, They say that the soul is the seat of your emotions, your mind, your intellect, where you make judgments and everything else, and that the spirit is what belongs to God. It's either dead or alive. Dead if you've not received Yehoshua and you do not accept him as God, then you're dead. Alive if you've received, then the spirit is alive unto God. So that's the best way I can put it. So getting back to the subject of what makes us alive, what keeps us going on, and I came up to that so many portions of the Bible which reference to the fact that the blood is the life. On the video on the curse of veganism, I had spoken about the fact that all of us cannot have the same blood pressure. That is impossible. So when you go to a hospital and they put you up on some sort of, whatever they call it, they check your blood pressure, they tie something around your hand or check for your heartbeat and everything else, and they try to give you drugs, and they say, okay, you have maybe a slow heartbeat or fast heartbeat, or you're hypertensive, you have high blood pressure and all that. I tried to explain in that video that there is no such thing. And so this video is still going to be a continuation of that explanation, so people can really get the understanding to know that the Vatican has so much confused us, so much deceived us, and has turned the whole world into lab rats in which they make money from. And this is the reason why we are making this particular video today, to make you understand a lot of things about your blood and your heart. So let's get into that. So what you're looking at on the screen right now is a couple of portions of the Bible which I'm trying to make you understand how the story of trying to understand what's so particular that makes us alive, that keeps us going on, in which, the medical world, which is run by the Vatican, has twisted so much that we do not have an understanding. But like I've said before, the Bible has all truth. So if you're interested in the truth, the very first book that you should read is your Bible, especially the Geneva Bible and the King James Bible in specifics. So when studying the Bible, you find out that the Bible lays so much emphasis on the blood. So for example, when Yehoshua died, the Bible speaks about his blood, that his blood, came over, he said, as an atonement for our sins. Okay. The Bible also talks about, it always laid emphasis on that whenever there was something wrong, whenever the children of Israel did anything wrong, they would have to bring a sacrifice, and the sacrifice was always atoned with the blood of either calves, goats, sheep, or whatever animal that God decided should be used. Their blood should be used for the atonement of the children of Israel. And God always laid emphasis on the fact that nobody should eat meat with the blood. So I read a lot of this, and I still couldn't understand what is so particular about the blood that God lays so much emphasis on. And when reading, God would always say, that the life of the being is in the blood. So nobody should eat the blood. So if you got an animal and you were trying to eat it, you have to drain the blood out, maybe either by frying it or just, making sure that the blood of the animal is drained out before you eat it. You should not eat the life of any animal with the blood intact. So, and all this leads to the point that the blood has a direct linkage to the next few statements I'm going to make, because the reason is this: in the medical world, we've been made to believe that our heart keeps us alive. That means your heart, for example, pumps blood through your whole body, and so when your heart stops working, it's not pumping blood anymore, then you're dead. So we've been made to believe that the heart is what keeps us alive, the human heart. And let me just show you a picture of that so you guys can know specifically what I'm saying to understand. So what you're looking at right here is the human heart. And this is what in the medical world we've been made to believe that keeps every living organism or every living animal alive. It's the heart. They say the heart is responsible for pumping blood throughout our whole entire bodies. And without the heart, and when the heart stops working, then we're dead. And we've believed this for a very long time. So let me get back into those portions of the Bible in which God lays so much emphasis on the blood, because I want to make you guys see a connection. Because according to the Bible says that the blood is what keeps us alive, that the blood is the life of all flesh. According to the Vatican, it says it's the heart. So which one is it? Because I was always very, very confused about this. I would ask the questions. The Bible is this is where you have to start paying attention, because your Bible is I don't know how to explain this. Your Bible is the greatest book of all time. If you would just read it and believe and study on your own, away from the so-called mind controllers in churches, in pastors, and whosoever else is trying to teach you the word, you just read it on your own. You will love your Bible. So, because if we have been studying a Bible away from, and believing it for what it says, a lot of the things that's going on in the world, we wouldn't be falling for a lot of nonsense. So, for example, the Bible tells us that our world is flat. And we see it every day that's flat. But we deny it and believe that it's a globe, that it's a spherical ball spinning, when there is no facts to prove that. But let me not digress. Let's get back into this. So, like I was saying, we believe that the heart keeps us alive. The Bible says it's the blood. Let me read some specific portions for you to see that. So the first portion I'm reading from is from Genesis. I'm reading from Genesis chapter number 9. I'm reading from verse 4 in the Geneva Bible. And it says, "But flesh with the life thereof, I mean with the blood thereof, shall you not eat." So it goes on to say, "For surely I'll require your blood wherein your lives are." So that's where I want you to stop, okay? It says that the blood is your lives. That means what's keeping the human body alive is your blood. And if you are in the medical world and you've lived for a very long time, you'll always hear that the heart keeps you alive. But the Bible here says, and God specifically says, that it is your blood that keeps you alive. So that means that the blood in our bodies is a living organism. It's an organ on its own. And this is just mind-blowing, because I'm going to show you all of this with proof so that you can understand that whenever you get to a doctor and they start measuring you for your your blood pressure and your pulse and heartbeat, that they're actually putting you in a mind control in which they can use you to make money. Because a lot of people get into a hospital and they get hooked up on so many drugs because they're telling them that you have high blood pressure, hypertension, and all that. You're going to find out that all that is false. And we're going to show you by the end of this video that you have anything of high blood pressure, hypertension, so on and so forth. What you're suffering from has nothing to do with your heart. It will have something to do with the type of food that you've been consuming. Now, there's so many false narratives that we're going to get done away with this particular video. So please sit tight. It's going to be a long video. But let me read some other scriptures for you in which, God specifically always keeps mentioning the blood. And I was always wondering, why does he say it's the blood? Even though, because technically speaking, when you hear that the blood keeps you alive, and then you hear such things as that it's your heart that keeps you alive, according to the medical world, as we have believed. When you put your hand on your heartbeat, oh sorry, when you put your hand on your heart, you can hear your heart beat. And so you believe that the beating heart is what is a symbol that you're alive or you're dead. And you tend to believe that. So at this particular video, you're going to find out if it's true or not, just based on what we're going to narrate, because we're going to put this particular words from the Bible that we're reading to the test in reality, to see what the real science talks about what the blood actually does. So let me read some few other portions on how God keeps on specifying that the reason for us being alive, especially our flesh, right, is because of our blood. So that means from now on, by the time we get done with this video, you're going to be paying specific attention to your blood, in what you eat, and the type of electrolytes you consume, and every other thing, so that you do not get hooked on drugs that's going to give you a lifetime dedication to keep on taking those drugs to be alive, because the Vatican wants you to believe that your heart keeps you alive instead of the blood. So let's read some few more scriptures before we go on. So the next portion I'm going to read comes from Leviticus chapter number 17 in the Geneva Bible, still in reference in God trying to make us understand that the life of every living animal, is in his blood. So that means the blood is what keeps us alive. The blood is a living organism on its own. Okay? It's what keeps everything alive. It's not the heart. All right? So it goes on to say here in Leviticus chapter number 17, I'm reading from verse 13 in the Geneva Bible. It says, "Moreover, whosoever he be of the children of Israel, of the strangers that sojourn among them, which by hunting taketh any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall pour out the blood thereof, and cover it with dust. For the life of all flesh is his blood. It is joined with his life. Therefore I said unto the children of Israel, you shall eat the blood of no flesh. For the life of all flesh is the blood thereof." Now, why is God so particular, all right, about the fact that nobody should drink any blood, all right, or spill any blood of a human being? Because the life of the flesh is in the blood. Why is God so particular about that? You have to understand this. Like I asked this question before. Do we know what keeps us alive? Can you say for certain, because you see a dead human being, he still has blood in his body, but he's not alive. Do we know for certain what is the meaning of life? What does it mean to be alive? Does it just mean breathing, seeing, touching things and feeling things, being able to move and think? What does it mean to be alive? Because nobody knows. Nobody knows what keeps us alive, all right? Or what makes us alive. How can we ascertain that we are alive just by, or the essence of life? Nobody knows that. So that makes you understand the reason why God said that nobody should eat the blood, because all life, right, belongs to God. Because if we read according to the Bible, God gave us life. So remember, he said when he had created a man, he breathed into man, right, from his nostrils, and man became a living being. He breathed into man, right, and man became a living being. So that means the life came from God. Okay, so that's why he lays emphasis on the fact that nobody should drink blood, because that life that he gave is his. I hope that makes sense. So let me read one. I think I have one more portion to read for you guys to keep seeing this before we get into the nuts and bolts of this matter. So I'm reading again this time around from Deuteronomy chapter number 12 in the Geneva Bible, and I'm reading from verse number 23. Let me start reading from verse number 22 so you guys can understand clearly what I'm reading. It says, "But as the roebuck and the hart is eaten, so shalt thou eat them. Both the unclean and clean shall eat of them alike. Only be sure that thou eat not the blood, for the blood is the life, and thou mayest not eat the life with the flesh." So God is still laying emphasis on this, that nobody should drink any blood, okay? Because the blood is the life. And you should just eat the flesh, but not the blood. Drain out the blood, because the blood is the life, and the life belongs to Him, okay? So when you have an understanding of this, you tend to understand what goes on, especially in the so-called Vatican system that we live in. Why do they love spilling so much blood? The blood of children, the blood of adults, and the blood of so many people around the world. Because here specifically the Bible makes you understand that the life of the human flesh is in the blood, and since all life came from God, then all life belongs to Him. So when you take blood, when you spill someone's blood, okay, we're not even talking about an animal right now. We're talking about human beings as well. When you spill the life of a human being and you use their blood, that means that you are associating the life, okay, of that being with something else. You're trying to give whatsoever being that you're associating the spilling of blood with life. Does it make sense? So for example, you find out there are so many rituals that goes on around the world in so many of these crazy temples which the Vatican owns, in which they make rituals of killing babies, human beings, goats and cows, and they spill the blood. And the Bible does make us understand that all sacrifices that are made, that the people make, are unto demons. So that means when you spill blood, you're giving a demon life, okay? Because the life is supposed to belong to God. But when you spill human blood or animal blood, you're spilling it for demons, especially in rituals. So that makes us understand that what keeps every living organism, especially animals, alive is the blood. But we have to make you see that in reality. So the next website I'm going to read on, it talks about the fact that it's going to try to explain that the heart does not keep us alive. That when you get into any medical facility and you get measured for your heartbeat, and everything is about your heart, your pulse and everything else, they are giving you the wrong idea, because we've been made to believe that the heart pumps blood throughout the whole human body and is what keeps us alive. But you're going to find out on this particular website that I'm going to read from, and with common sense, that the heart does not pump blood in your body. The heart has nothing to do with pumping blood and keeping you alive. So I want you to remember those terms very, very well. Listen very clearly. The heart does not pump your blood. When your heart beats, the heart is beating because of something else. It has nothing to do with pumping blood throughout your whole entire body, as we've been made to believe. Now, to start this story, I want to lay a very basic foundation for you guys to understand this. And to lay this basic foundation, I'm going to use a car, all right? Because we all drive cars, and if you're not, let's say, what's the best way to put it? If you've never understood anything about a car, you just drive it. I'm going to use a car to lay an analysis or lay an analogy for you to understand how the human body works, okay? And what's going on, the processes that are going on there to make sure that you are alive, rather. So, for example, I'm going to liken a car to a human being, okay? So let's say the car is you, okay? Now, what happens with a car is this, that a car cannot drive without gas, okay? So a car needs, in this particular explanation, I'm using a gasoline engined car to explain this. So I don't want you to start thinking about battery operated cars, everything, because even though a gasoline operated car also carries a battery, okay? So I'm going to liken you to a car, okay? And likening you to a car, you have to understand that a car does not move if it does not have gasoline. So in this respect, a gasoline would be, let's say, food that you eat, okay? So when you pull up into a gas station, you put, the nozzle of the dispenser inside your petrol tank and you fill it up. In the same way with a human being, petrol tanks, how we fill up would be with food. So when you eat food, the food goes into your tummy, right? So in the same way, when you get stopped at a gas station and you put the pump into your gas tank and you fill it up, it fills the gas tank, all right? Now, from the gas tank, the fuel line takes the car all the way to the engine, all right? In the same way, when you eat food, all right, you get energy, and your stomach produces that energy or the nutrients that you need for your, for the energy that you need to use to start moving. So let's say your intestines are, the small intestines now take the food that you've eaten, and then they digest it and produce maybe whatsoever, let's say protein. They break it down into all the necessary elements that you need as energy or fuel for you, all right? Now, the energy needs to burn to produce an explosion, which is the actual elements that you actually need for the car to move. So for example, when you fill up your gas tank, and the fuel line takes the gas all the way to the engine. At the engine, the gas needs to be mixed with air, and when it's mixed with air under pressure, it produces an explosion, which is energy. That energy is now transferred by the crankshaft that moves the wheels of your car, all right? So in the same way with a human being, when you're done eating, okay, and your tummy has digested the food and taken all the elements that it needs, it transfers this energy, all right, into the cells of your body, all right? The cells of your body now use this energy and they move it all the way into whatsoever area, part of your body that the energy is needed for, okay? So, and in this way, the oxygen that's required for this energy to burn and release all these elements into your body comes from your lungs. So when you breathe in through your lungs, you breathe in oxygen, okay? An explosion goes on between the oxygen and all the chemical elements that your tummy or that you've digested through your small intestines and into your blood. And when that explosion comes up, you release gas, and that gas is carbon dioxide, which is the same thing that your car engine produces as wastes. So you breathe in oxygen, there's an explosion that goes on between a combination of all the elements that you've received from your digestion, which is the same as the gas that's passing through your car, and that explosion causes a release of energy, and the waste comes out as the carbon dioxide that we breathe, which is the same thing that's produced in your car. So a car is likening what goes on in the human body. So now the question we need to ask is this. In all of that explanation that we gave using the car, did the engine, which we would liken to be the heart of the car, is it responsible, all right, for keeping the car driving? Or is it a combination of the energy that's being produced, all right, with the mixture of oxygen and gas that's keeping the car running? Or is it the heart at that point in time? So I don't know if you understand that explanation. So what I'm trying to say in essence is this. The engine doesn't keep the car driving, all right? The engine only produces at that point in time energy for the car to drive. Does that make sense? So with that reference, if you understand what we've talked about, then you can understand what the heart is doing. The heart is not what's keeping us alive. It's rather the flow of the blood, all right, that's taking all the energy that's being produced because it's the blood that does everything. The blood makes the digestion possible. It carries the food, the nutrients, and everything that we need to be alive. So the whole entire blood system is like, let's say, it would be the whole entire fuel line of your car. So let's get into this website because I don't want to get too long-winded here so you guys don't lose me. And let's read for you to see what's happening with your heart, to understand that your heart doesn't keep you alive. It's your blood that does. Let's read this. So this article starts off by saying why shocking a flatline heart can get it going again. You can pause the video at any point in time, copy out this link right there, and go read up on yourself so you guys can understand the deception that has been put upon us by the Vatican when they know the truth, that the heart has nothing to do with keeping us alive because it's the blood that keeps us alive, just like the Bible has let us know. So we're going to read into this article a little bit, and we're going to show you some specific details. We're going to throw something out here and there. If it's a lie, then we're going to tell you it's a lie. If it's truth, then we're going to tell you it's the truth, because you have to know that the Vatican is involved in anything. So even when they're telling you the truth, they're still going to add a lie in there so you believe them. So let's start with reading this article. Which starts by saying that it's a myth. Shocking someone who has flatline can get their heart started again. Okay? Well, they say it's a myth, but it's really not a myth, because the question we now need to ask is this. Because you see this all the time. Someone goes into cardiac arrest and so forth, and then after trying to give them some sort of CPR, it doesn't work. Then they call the medic team in, and they bring out this, is it called defibrillators or so? I'm sorry if I don't quite remember the name, but I know it has something to do with it's a defibrillator or whatever the name is. They put this onto someone, they open their chest up, and try to give them some sort of electric shock. So the question we need to ask now is this. If the heart is responsible, all right, for keeping us alive, why do you need to electrocute it? So that goes on to show you that the heart has nothing to do with pumping blood, because they're putting an electric shock, all right, into the heart to restart it. So what does that mean? That means what the heart does is produce electric shocks. Okay? It's common sense. If you're putting an electric shock into the heart, that means what the heart naturally produces or uses to function is an electric shock. It's the same analogy that I was trying to explain with the car. If you put a gasoline into your car, that means the car naturally uses gasoline. It's the same ideology for it to work. In the same way, if you put an electroshock into a heart, that means what the heart does is produce an electric shock. We'll explain that a little bit more. Another thing that you have to understand is this. When a baby is being conceived, a baby doesn't have a functioning heart till, like, let's say 3 or 7 or 8 weeks into the conception. So if the heart is responsible for keeping us all alive, how does a baby grow being conceived without a heart for close to 7-8 weeks? What keeps it alive? It's the blood, just like the Bible says. But I know some wise fellows out there are going to say, oh, the mom keeps the baby alive by our own heartbeat. But that's not the case. The blood is what keeps that baby going, because we all know that the baby doesn't need anything besides the fact that the baby is just implanted into the mother's body and is feeding off from whatsoever the mom eats for it to grow. It just does that naturally on its own. So all what the mom is doing is feeding the baby from conception till the baby is born. So let's get back into reading this article. It's a very interesting article. Like I said before, it's going to be a long video, so if you can't sit through it, please don't at all. Just quit and go. And for those who are interested, you can always watch it in bits and pieces. So let's start here. It says, it never fails. Just the article just talking about what happens when we watch TV all the time and see someone get an electroshock to get their heart starting again, to live again. It says, it never fails. You're watching television and someone is circling the drain in a toilet for their life. The noise from the heart monitor affirms they are still alive. When it's consistent rhythmic beeps, all of a sudden alarm starts ringing off on the monitor. The dreaded flat line. Doctors begin rushing in. One of them always seems to yell, hand me the paddles, we're losing him. The machine is charged and miraculously the heart is shocked back to life, saving the day, but only after a suitably dramatic number of zaps and someone inevitably shouting, live, damn you. The problem is that in real life, you'll be accomplishing nothing by shocking a flatline unless you like your meat well done. That is, medically, a flatline is known as asystole, meaning no heart contraction. It might seem common sense that if there's no contraction, you might want to contract it with a shock. Let me make this a little more larger. It says, the truth about why this will never restart the heart lies in how the heart creates its life-giving bit. In the end, it all comes down to electrolytes. So that's the first step that we have to understand. Electrolytes. Now, what are electrolytes? In very simple terms, electrolytes just means salts. Okay? So the first step for anybody suffering from hypertension, because you hear this all the time, high blood pressure, they tell you reduce your salts. And it's been long known in the medical world, especially because if you get into a restaurant, you find out that they cook the food without salt, and then you have to add the salt on your own. And the government gets on a campaign and tries to tell us that we should try to eat less salts. Okay? But the truth is this. Salt is what we need as electrolytes in our body, because salt is made of sodium, potassium, and calcium. Okay? Those are the three types of electrolytes that our body uses: sodium, potassium, and calcium. So if you're eating less salt, that means you don't have enough electrolytes. Your blood, which we're going to find out by the end of this particular video, which is responsible for moving things and which needs those electrolytes for it to move, because remember, the electrolytes are needed to create, right, electrical impulses. Because like a battery in your car, the liquid in your car has salts, which is used to create electrical energy. So that means our whole entire body system is functioning on electricity that we naturally produce. So I don't know if anybody has watched this movie called The Matrix. You would have noticed that in the movie The Matrix, one of the things that what's the name of the guy in The Matrix here, Morpheus, told Neo was that the idea of that machine that was putting people in the Matrix was using human bodies to produce electricity to run it. All right? So the Vatican always tells you the truth, but people do not pay specific attention because you're just watching for entertainment reasons and you don't understand what they're telling you because you're not watching with your brain open. So as we get back into this article, I want you to understand that the first basic step, all right, in the blood to keep us alive is electrolytes. So if you're having hypertension, high blood pressure, all right, it means that you have a lack of sufficient electrolytes in your body. That means you're eating most of your food without salt or enough salt for the processes that your blood needs to keep you alive. And so when you go to the hospital and they get you hooked up on all these crazy drugs, these drugs are going to supply your body with some sort of weak electrolytes, which is going to take you a while to get off of, in which you could die because you become dependent on it instead of going the right way and eating enough food with salt. You can't eat too much salt. If you eat too much salt, all you just need to do is drink water. It's that simple. You can't eat too much salt. The requisite for too much salt is drink water. So let's get back into reading this article so you can see the lies that we've been told day in and night. Now, so let's continue. It says, the heart typically receives approximately 60 to 100 shocks per minute, usually from specialized pacemakers cells in the right upper portion of the heart, known as the sinoatrial node. And let me show you with a picture so you guys can have a clear visual of this. So here is a picture of the heart right here and the sinoatrial node. Now, remember, we talked about the fact that I don't remember if I talked about the fact that the battery, maybe you guys don't know much about this. A battery always has a negative node and a positive node. The negative and the positive node is to make sure that when the electrolytes which flow inside the battery, the positive and the negative node will make it produce electricity when the electrolytes flow within the battery. So that's what the positive and negative nodes for. So what you're looking at right here is the human heart. And what you notice right here, like I read before, is what they call the sinoatrial node. So this sinoatrial node here and this other node that's called the atrioventricular node is symbolic of a battery, a positive and a negative node. So that means when the blood flows, the blood carries the electrolytes. The blood is the electrolyte itself, just like a car battery that you could use that carries some sort of liquid. So what happens here is when the blood flows into the heart, all right, maybe we should explain this. Let me keep on reading, then I'll explain this later on using this particular picture. But for now, I just want you to understand that the sinoatrial node right here, the sinoatrial node, is a positive node inside the heart, and the atrioventricular node right here is the negative node. All right, so it's more like a battery, a car battery that has a positive and a negative node, and there's an electrolyte inside the battery. So when the electrolytes flow, the positive and the negative node cause an electrical charge to be discharged. So that's just the best way I can explain it. So let's keep on reading this. We'll come back to this and you'll understand it very, very clearly. So it goes on to say these specialized cells will naturally create an electrical differential between the inside of the cell and the outside. So what is it talking about here? So it's saying here, the cell here is talking about the blood, all right? So when the blood flows through the heart, all right, it causes a charge between the sinoatrial node and the atrioventricular node, which I showed you guys. And that charge causes an electrical discharge. So let's keep on reading. So I just want you to remember that, because there's a lot of lies in here, but I will keep on explaining so you guys can understand what's going on inside your heart. So it says these specialized cells will naturally create an electrical differential between the inside of the cell and the outside. Once that differential is at just the right amount, it will send a shock down and throughout the heart muscle, causing it to contract. Once this electrical signal is produced, it will generally go completely throughout the heart through the cardiac conduction system. So let me explain this again using that picture. All right, what happens here is this. Blood comes in through the heart. The flow of the blood, just like the flow of electrolytes in your car battery, causes an electrical charge to be erupted between the positive sinoatrial node here and the atrioventricular node. All right, when that electrical charge is conducted, the heart contracts. Now, why does the heart contract? So I'll just give you the full story. Let me keep on reading this, so because I want you guys to understand everything. Okay, so let me keep on reading this. It says where did I stop? Okay, once I stopped right here. Once this electrical signal is produced, it will generally go complete throughout the heart, throughout the cardiac conduction system. I keep on reading. You might be thinking right now, if the heart creates a shock to get a contraction, why wouldn't shocking it externally get the job done? Well, the devil is in the details. Now, remember, shocking the heart externally can bring it back to life to create that electrical shock. But the question is, what is the electrical shock needed for? That's the question this doesn't answer, which we will answer by the end when we put everything in perspective, so you understand. So just keep reading with me and let's just see how this goes and this article goes, and we'll keep on explaining as we go along. It says the SA node creates an electrical differential using electrolytes like potassium, sodium, and calcium. So remember, we talked about electrolytes as we started reading this article, that if you have problems, right, and they say that you have heart failures or heart diseases or anything wrong with your heart, you have high blood pressure, hypertension, and they hook you up on a ton of drugs. What you just have to understand in very simple terms is that a lot of the food that you're eating, that you're negating salt in it. Because people don't understand it. Because when you go to a doctor, to a hospital, and you tell them that you have high blood pressure or hypertension, what do they tell you to do? They tell you to reduce your salt intake. But the situation that got you there in the first place is because your salt intake is already reduced. That's why you're having the hypertension, high blood pressure, and everything. So when the doctor tells you to reduce your salt intake, that means he's even killing you. Because before you got to the hospital, you're already low on salts. All right, let's just keep on reading. So he goes on to say here, this is them just trying to be funny by saying that he won't be going to college level physiology lecture, as this article would be way too long, and I imagine most of you are interested in reading such an essay. Let's keep on reading to the main crux of the matter. So it says, these electrolytes all have specific electrical charges that pass through your cell walls using channels named after the electrolyte. So that means with every cell of your blood, every cell of your blood has an ability, all right, to carry potassium, to carry calcium, and to carry sodium, which are salts. Okay? So that's all you need to understand so far from at this point. So let's keep on reading. It says potassium generally lies inside of your cell before it contracts. So that means when the blood flows into your heart, there's potassium inside the cell. Inside your red blood cell, there's potassium. All right. Now, sodium and calcium generally reside outside the cell. So that means the other type of salt, sodium and calcium, remain outside the cell. Okay. When you have a blood pressure, if you didn't, you would quickly be dead. Sodium, now don't worry about it, because sodium blood pressure right here is false. I'll explain all that by the end of this video, but I'm just reading. When I'm reading, I'm showing you what's false and what is not. Okay. Because the Vatican is always throwing in lies just to confuse, because the whole idea of putting this blood pressure in here is so that you can always believe in checking your blood pressure when you go to the hospital, which is not needed. We'll explain all what that is in a second, but hang on with us. Let's keep on reading. Now, what you have to understand right here from this point now is how the electrical charge is created in the heart by the blood, which carries the electrolytes that's necessary for the electrical discharge. So it goes on to say sodium is naturally forced inside your cell. So sodium is forced inside your cell from outside, because remember, it started by saying that potassium is inside your cell while sodium and calcium are outside. So when the sodium is naturally forced inside the cell, all right, this also causes potassium to be forced outside of your cell, okay, creating an electrical potential. Okay, so remember, all the salts, the electrolytes, both carry, for example, I think the sodium would carry a positive differential, and the potassium and calcium would carry a negative one. So when the negative and a positive meet, it creates an electrical charge. That's the best way I can explain it. So let's keep on reading. Once that potential gets high enough, it opens up calcium channels, which are voltage regulated. When the calcium channels are opened up, sodium and calcium rush inside the cell, creating just the right amount of charge. Once that charge is reached, the heart sends out its shock, known as depolarization. Now, I think I should just stop right here and go into maybe explaining it a little bit in very layman's terms, so you guys can understand, because I don't think I should read any further. Maybe what else should I read? Let me see if there's anything else I should read in here before I go into explain. Okay, let's just read the whole stuff, then I'll explain it in a very clear term so you guys can understand what's going on. So first of all, let's clear up what it means by depolarization here, because it says when the calcium channels are opened up, sodium and calcium rush inside the cell, creating just the right amount of charge. Once the charge is reached, the heart sends out its shock. So what it's explaining right here is that when the blood comes through right here, okay, it creates an electrical charge. The electrical charge is discharged because this is a positive node and this is a negative node, just like a car battery. The electrolytes, the potassium and all sorts that the potassium, the calcium, the sodium that come in here, when they pass through here, create this electrical charge, which causes your heart to contract. Okay, that's all what you need to understand for now. But let's keep on reading to understand what does it mean, because the crux of understanding what the heart does lies in this word, depolarization. The Vatican likes using complex words to explain very simple things, because if you get on your search engine and you want to type depolarization, you're going to be very, very confused about the results that you're going to get. But so let's just explain it with very simple English what depolarization actually means. To explain what depolarization means, we need to understand what polarization means, because depolarization just means unpolarize something, okay? Polarize and unpolarize, just like you would say successful and unsuccessful, okay? So you need to understand the main word itself before you understand what the meaning of depolarization is. And here we are with Wikipedia again. You could pause the video and copy out the link, or just type out polarization on your search engine and see what it means. So let's explain it and see what it means. It says, in the physical sciences, polarization, the ability of waves to oscillate in more than one direction. In particular, polarization of light, responsible, for example, for the glare reducing effect of polarized sunglasses. Now, if you read all this, if you're somebody who's trying to understand what it means, you get a hell lot of confused, because they're telling you that polarization means the ability of waves to oscillate. So let me break it down what it means. Oscillation just means change direction. It's that simple. So that means you're going from north to south, now go south to north. You're going from east to west, change from west to east. So polarization here makes you understand, you guys have probably heard of this word, alternating current. That means the current changes direction. It's not flowing one direction. That means it's going one way. It can come back the other way. And we've always heard that alternating currents are far better than direct currents, which just flows in one direction. So if you understand what polarization means, it just means changing direction. Polarization means changing direction. That means you can flow from north to south and from east to west. So with that understanding, when you get back into reading this article in which it says depolarization, what does that mean? It just means it's changing direction. Because polarization means that you're flowing in one direction. Depolarization would mean that you're flowing in another direction. So this makes you understand what the blood is doing. So let me break it down, because I think I should stop reading here and just explain this in very simple terms. So let me bring up that picture of the heart again. So here's what's going on with your heart. Your heart does not pump blood. Your heart is too small an organ to be able to move the amount of blood into every part of your body that you need to be alive. So whatever you've been told throughout history, that your heart pumps blood and keeps you alive, is not true. It's your blood that keeps you alive, because your blood is a living organism on its own. So let's explain this in very simple detail so you can understand what is going on here with the heart. Now, the blood needs electrolytes to move. All right? The electrolytes are gotten from the food that you eat and your salt intake. All right? Energy, all right? Because you have to understand, when you eat food, your body needs protein and so many other elements to keep everything going. It also needs electrolytes. So your blood is busy carrying everything that you need into every organ of your body. That's what your blood is doing. Your blood is flowing everywhere, okay? Carrying all the necessary nutrients that you need, your protein, your carbohydrates, or whatever vitamins that you need to be healthy, to keep you functioning. That's what your blood is doing, all right? And for the blood to do this, to be able to move, it needs electrolytes, it needs salt. So the salts are the potassium, the calcium, and the sodium, which all carry charges, positive or negative, okay? So now here is where the heart comes in. The blood needs to be oscillated. Oscillated means the blood needs to be moving. If it's going from top to down, it needs to go from bottom to up. Okay? So when the blood flows in through the heart, okay, right here, what the blood is doing is trying to create an electrical charge that's going to move it in the opposite direction. Because the blood doesn't need to flow one way, it needs to flow both ways. It needs to be able to flow from top to bottom and from bottom to up, because it needs to feed the whole entire body of nutrients. So if it's flowing in only one direction, okay, it's not going to be able to feed your body enough nutrients that you need. So because the blood is a living thing, it needs to be going up and down, back and forth, up and down, back and forth. Okay? So when it flows into the heart right here, into this part of the heart, right? I think this should be the right atrium or whatsoever. Okay? What happens is this. It creates an electrical charge between the sinoatrial node and the atrioventricular node of the heart. When this happens, since the blood flows through the heart, it's flowing from a positive position to a negative position. All right? Or is that the right way to put it? No, it's flowing from a negative position rather to a positive because it's going up. All right? It needs to come back down. So when it comes into the heart right here, the heart creates an electrical charge that gives it a negative differential to flow in the opposite direction. Okay? So that's all what the heart is doing. It's creating an electrical charge that goes through the whole entire blood in your body and sends it flowing in the opposite direction. So that's why when it creates this electrical charge, the heart contracts. When it contracts, it forces blood out of this other part of the heart. So it comes in here, creates an electrical charge. That charge causes the heart to contract and causes the blood that's in here to flow out the other way. So this cycle keeps on repeating because the blood in your body needs to flow in opposite directions all the time, back and forth, to and fro. So the heartbeat is just an electrical charge that's being created that causes that contraction that you hear as your heart is beating. So those heartbeats are signs of the electrical impulses that's being created to send your blood flowing in the opposite direction so that it feeds your body continually. All right? So another thing right here I wanted to mention was the fact that we mentioned what we call the blood pressure. So when you get into a hospital, they wrap something around your arm, okay? And they measure your pulse. And depending on the numbers they read, they can tell you have high blood pressure and low blood pressure. There's no such thing. Because that's not blood pressure, right? That the blood does not have any pressure. What they're actually measuring is how your blood is flowing back and forth. So that's why, for example, if you place your hand on your let's say your wrist and try to measure your pulse, if you don't press it, you won't feel it. Why won't you feel the pulse? Because when you press it is when you feel you're constricting the blood vessels or capillaries to feel how the blood is going back and forth at the same time. What you're measuring is not blood pressure. When that little thing, or when you got into a hospital and they put that thing around your arm, right? What that thing is doing is constricting or contracting your blood vessels. So when it's constricting your blood vessels, since the blood is going back and forth, it's going to try to force its way through those capillaries because you've constricted it. And that's when you feel that pulse. Boom, boom, boom. It's not a blood pressure. It's because you have constricted that blood vessel. So it's trying to force its way through because it's continually going back and forth every single second or minute. And that is all what it is. It is no blood pressure. So every time you get into a hospital and they say you're measuring your blood pressure, they are measuring you for the wrong thing because they are the ones causing the blood pressure by constricting the blood vessels. Because once they constrict it, since the blood is always going back and forth, it's going to try to force its way through. And that's when you hear that pulse beat. So the whole idea of blood pressure is false. It doesn't exist. Because the heart is not pumping any blood. All what the heart is doing is creating an electrical charge, a positive charge and a negative charge for your blood to flow in both directions at the same time through your whole body. Because that is what the blood does. The blood is a living organism. It needs to keep moving. And the heart gives it that possibility to keep on moving by continually feeding it with an electrical charge so it can move in the direction, because the blood already can flow in one direction on its own, but it can't flow back without an electrical charge to give it a negative differential to come back the opposite way. That is all what is happening. So when you get into the hospital and they measure your blood pressure, what they are giving you is false information, because they are the one creating the blood pressure by wrapping something around your arm to constrict your blood vessels. And so when the blood is going back and forth, it's forcing its way through those capillaries, and you can feel the pressure caused by the return of blood flowing in one direction after the other, because the heart is continually creating an electrical charge for the blood to flow in opposite directions all the time. So to explain more the difference between, what they call a heart rate and a pulse, I want to explain this from this website so you guys can understand that there is no such thing as a blood pressure. All right. So you could pause the video at any point in time, copy out this link. I'm just going to read a few sentences, then I'll carry on and get back to the explanation of what I was saying. It says here, difference between heart rate and pulse. So it says, heart rate is the number of times per minute that the heart contracts, the number of heartbeats per minute. So every time your heartbeat releases an electrical charge, which causes the blood to flow in an opposite direction, that's called a heartbeat. Now, what is a pulse called? It says, pulse is the mechanical pulse of blood flow through the capillaries caused by contractions of the heart per minute. So it's a blood flow, the pulse that you feel. It's got nothing to do with blood pressure. There is no pressure at all. It's just the blood flowing in an opposite direction. And so when those guys wrap or whatever they wrap to measure your blood pressure with, it constricts those capillaries. So the heart blood pressure, or the blood pressure that they tell you, it's constructed. It's not reality. Because if they don't wrap it around those capillaries and blood vessels, it's not going to constrict the blood flow such that you feel that pulse. Does it make sense? So this is all what it means. That's all what it means. Okay? That's all what it is. So that's why I had to take out the time, and we as a team thought that we should let you guys know this, so that you don't get into a hospital and they put you on some sort of medication for having high blood or low blood pressure, which doesn't exist, because you had not taken in the right amount of salts in your food and eating the right amount of foods, and so your heart cannot create enough electrical charge for you, and you start getting sick because your blood is not flowing in the opposite direction as much as it should be, because you do not have enough electrolytes and enough nutrients inside your body for it to do so. That's all what it is. Because when you get into the hospital and they get you hooked up on those medication, all what that medication is going to supply is some sort of electrolytes for you, specialized some sort of electrolytes, which when you get off it, you're going to have a problem, because you do not know. Because you have to understand, when you get to a hospital and you say you have a weak heartbeat or any of these things, it's because it's been a prolonged amount of time that you haven't been taking in the right electrolytes and the right type of nutrients into your body. So when they get you hooked up on the drugs, you're going to stay on the drugs because your lifestyle hasn't changed. When you change your lifestyle and you eat the right amount of electrolytes and salts, which is being touted across especially the United States and the whole entire world, that you should eat less salt. That is the cause of your problem. Eating less salt is the cause of your problem. You should eat more salt, not less of it. Like I said, you don't have any problem with eating more salt. All you need to do is just drink water. And that's it. So the whole entire system is a fraud to defraud you, because you haven't been paying attention to the truth. Because of what your Bible says, you haven't been paying attention. That's why the Bible is the greatest book of all time in the world. Spend some more time in it and you get to understand the truth. So with that, I hope you've learned something with understanding how your heart works. Your heart's not a pump. What keeps you alive is your blood. And you have to take care of your blood with what you eat and eating the right electrolytes so you stay healthy. So with that, let's switch gears and get into the investigation of these fraudsters in the Trinity Broadcasting Network. So here is Paul Crouch and Matt Crouch. Paul Crouch is said to have founded the Trinity Broadcasting Network, which we just showed you. And like I've said before, when you hear the word Trinity, you have to understand that it has nothing to do with believing people who believe in the Bible, because the Trinity has always been associated with the Roman Catholic Church. Now, what I want you to notice about these two fellas here is the fact that if this is Paul Crouch's waist, I want you guys to take a good look at this body right now. One thing you have to understand is this: the only people who can wear their belts, all right, above their navel are usually females. With males, it's very, very difficult for you to wear your belt above your navel. You have to be a very, very fat and obese man for that to happen. That means you have to have oversized pants to be able to drag up those pants up above your belly button. So what we would have to find out here is, where is Paul's Crouch belly button at this point? Because based on the torso of this body, the belly button can be around here below the belt. The belly button has to be around here, all right? And if his belly button is right around here, it's too far deep inside the torso of the body to be male. Paul Crouch is 100% female, just like Matt Crouch, which we're going to show in a couple of minutes, because you can see that both of them are all thick around the midsection like females, because females usually get thick around the midsection because half the female body is made up of half the female body is from let's say just slightly above the navel down all to the hips. So everything inside the reproductive organs of the female body is right inside the torso and not outside of it. So that's why a female is always thicker around the midsection, because of having all the reproductive organs inside the torso of the body instead of externally like a male. So let's continue with some more pictures of Paul Crouch here. As you can see, Paul Crouch standing right here shows you that there is an arch in that back, and that pelvis is tilted forward because Paul Crouch, who's been preaching the so-called gospel of Jesus Christ, which is actually fake, is a Vatican stooge, as we'll show you. And I think there's a picture in here which shows him with Pope John Paul acting stuff out, because they're all stooges raised by the Vatican and given us this false history of the Trinity Broadcasting Network, so we can all believe in it and be deceived, because the Vatican is only bent on deceiving people into their new world order, which is all for the devil himself. So Paul Crouch has an arch in his back, and you can tell from the suit that that pelvis is tilted forward because Paul Crouch is 100%. And you can just tell from the way he stands. Look at the long butt. See where his butt ends right here? Because that's the long butt of a female. Female always has a longer butt because the butt starts right deep inside the halfway point of the body, just below the just below the rib cage rather. That's where a female's butt starts, and all this is butt area because all the reproductive organs need to be in there. Look at where Paul Crouch's butt ends right here, as you can tell by this his pants, because Paul Crouch is 100% female and not a man in any way. Let's go to another picture of Paul Crouch, and you can look at the long pelvic region here of Paul Crouch sitting with his so-called wifey. I don't remember what his wife's name is. But every time, well, I wouldn't say every time. When my mind became open and I started looking into the finer details of what was being presented to me on TV. When I hear Paul Crouch's wife speak, you guys can go do this on your own. You will hear that she speaks in such a hypnotizing voice. It's like when you're going to meet some sort of psychiatric doctor who's trying to maybe heal a mentally maybe retarded patient. There's a way those psychiatric doctors speak, the manner of their speech and the way they modulate the voice. It's a hypnotic manner, and that's the way I found out when I started listening over again to how Paul Crouch's wife speaks, that she speaks in such a hypnotic manner, which would only mean that she's been trained that way as an agent, because this has to be a bona fide Vatican agent. But regardless, let's take a look at Paul Crouch's pelvis right here. This is the long pelvis of a female, because you can tell when a female sits down, because the body area of female starts so way high up into the torso of the body, it's always going to show in the pelvic region. It's going to be long, just like this, because Paul Crouch is 100% female and not a man in any way, masquerading around for too long. We'll show you some more pictures of that later. Here's Paul Crouch still sitting down. You can tell by the wide pelvis reach as it extends inside the outside the torso of the body, rather, because Paul Crouch is 100% female and not a man in any way. Some other pictures coming up. Here's Paul Crouch again. As you can see, the way she sits, I'll call it a she because it's a she. You can see how acute the thigh cross is, because she sits like a female, exposing so much thighs because the pubic arch is wider, enabling her to sit this way because Paul Crouch is 100% female. We'll show you some more other pictures, and I want you to notice the difference between the both of them, because this is a man here and this is a female. You can see how high the pelvic region, or where the belt location is, and how the pelvis is in Paul Crouch here, and see how low this is, because this is male with a very short pubic length and a very long pubic length for a female over here in Paul Crouch, because Paul Crouch is 100% female and not male in any way. Some more other pictures. Here's Paul Crouch again sitting. This is clear as night and day. If we should end this picture right here, you can tell, because you can see a female's hip bone right here into the pelvis, because you can see how big this pelvis is and where this hip bone indentation is, and the stretch of the pubic arch is so wide, right? Because this is a female sitting and not a man. You can tell by that, because a female's thighs and hips will be wider and bigger than that of a man, because it is needed for reproduction to be able to carry children. And this is what Paul Crouch exhibits, because Paul Crouch is 100% female. See that? That's where his thigh starts, and it's so long all the way down, because this is the length of the female thigh into the pubic region, because Paul Crouch is 100% female, been deceiving a lot of people for overly too long, a stooge of the Vatican. And the same thing again, you can see how wide this pubic thigh is, or the thigh is in the pubic region, because he has a wide pubic. See how wide that is? That is a female sitting down. A man's hips should not be this wide, because Paul Crouch is 100% female. Same thing again, you can see the long pubic region of a female, and you can, if you look right inside here, you find out that it doesn't look like there's any form of scrotum in here, because it looks like a labia arrangement of a female, because Paul Crouch is 100% female. And it's funny because everybody's on TBN. We're going to show you a video soon of everybody is on TBN, all the so-called evangelists and pastors, and they never ever cared to mention, even remotely by a joke, to you that Paul Crouch is a female. Because why? They're all working together. They've all been put together by the Vatican, deceiving us day in and night, because the Vatican owns everything. Let's go into some more pictures of Paul Crouch. We tried to grab this picture of Paul Crouch walking down the stairs in one of his so-called programs on TBN called, is it Praise the Lord? And people, I have to say something about that word, Lord. I don't know if I should, or we should start a video, because there's something very deep and unique that I want to explain to you guys. It's mind-boggling. It's very, very deep. It's not for people who just started studying the Bible or reading into it. It's beyond words, is very deep. We started talking about it in the book, but we didn't arrive at a conclusion because we wanted people to get a feel for it. I don't know if we may have to write another book about that. It's going to be specifically addressing that particular issue, or what we have to let you guys know. If we write a book, we definitely will make it free, especially if you've already purchased a book already. That's why it's very, very important that you purchase a book, or you get a book, because we going to we want to lay a foundation for understanding some other things. There's something very deep inside the Bible which we have to explain about the word the Lord. You see that word used a lot in the Bible, but what is it about? When you get a book, we start explaining that rather in the, I don't remember the chapter of the book right now. I have to pull it up on the screen, but it concerns the book of Job. So that explanation of Lord is very, very it's very, very, let's say, resounding in the book of Job. The book of Job is one of the most important books in the Bible that you have to study for yourself. If you're trying to understand the way life works, okay? If you're trying to understand life, the nitty-gritty details of life, you have to study the book of Job. And we get into all that explanation in our book. This is why we advise that you should get the book. It's very, very important that you do. If you're really interested in the truth, you should get our book. So I don't know if we'll start a series on that to explain the word Lord and specific details about it. Because when they say praise the Lord, what is it talking about? Is it praising God for real? We don't know, but let's leave that aside for now. We're just thinking about it for a second. But here, we just want to show you that this is the Q angle of a female coming down the stairs, even though this picture is not very clear because we got it from, we tried to pause the video and get it, and it wasn't very clear because it was moving way too fast. And you know, as the Vatican always makes it, if you notice that particular video series called Praise the Lord on TVN, the video quality is very, very poor, and it's poor for a specific reason, because they're trying to hide facts about Paul Crouch being a female. So that's why the clarity of the video series called Praise the Lord on TBN with Paul Crouch and Matt Crouch is in very, very poor quality, so you guys don't notice what's going on. It's the Vatican hiding facts in plain sight. But let's go to another picture of Paul Crouch here. The same pictures you can see right here. This is the pelvic region of a female. As you can tell how wide and how long the pelvic region is, and how big the thigh is in the socket, because Paul Crouch is 100% female. We still the same picture here, but you can marinate on it for a while again and still see the same thing, because this is a woman sitting and it was no man in any way. Here's Paul Crouch again, showing the huge pelvic region of a female, because there is no way you can change a man into a woman or a woman into a man, because the skeletal structure will always tell you all day, I'm a man or I'm a woman. And in Paul Crouch's place right here, it shows you all day, screaming all day, I am a female, because you can tell that's the long pubic region and the huge thighs and the you know, very rounded thighs of a female, because Paul Crouch is 100% female and not a man in any way. We show you that picture again, but you can still look at it. We have some more pictures, and here is Paul Crouch. We want to show you the difference between two females sitting. You can see this is a woman sitting down here, and you can see how long the butt area is for this female, because her butt of woman starts all the way here, and see how long it travels all the way down. It's the same thing that's happening with Paul Crouch here. It starts right here and travels all the way down here, because Paul Crouch is 100% female. Is not sitting like a man. So the picture is blurry, and I'm sorry for the poor picture quality. You know, the Vatican doesn't want us to see all these fine details. And here is it, Paul Crouch again, still showing you that huge pubic region, huge pelvis of a female, because this is a pubic region of a female, very long. And the navel of Paul Crouch can be in here, but just looking at the body, the navel is going to be right up here. And it's way too high set into the torso of the body to be male, because Paul Crouch is 100% female with this long and wide. See, the space in between the thighs is very, very wide, because this is a female sitting, and not that of a man. Let's go to some other pictures again. I think we already showed you that one. We still show you this one again. We showed you that one before. And here's a Matt Crouch. The whole family of Matt Crouch here looks weird. We can't say for sure, but I'm just saying they look weird because Matt Crouch is not the gender that he claims. Matt Crouch is actually female, not a man anyway. But this person here looks funny, and I can't really say much about this person. This is the one that really looks funny to me, but we'll do an investigation later on. And here's Paul Crouch again with Matt Crouch. You can tell two females by how the belt sits, because the navel has to be right around here. Set too far into the torso of the body to be male, because both of them are females. We'll look into Matt Crouch in a minute. And here's Paul Crouch again. As you can tell, that's a granny standing right over there. It's sad that he died, or she died, before we get to make this video, but for now we want to make the whole world know that Paul Crouch was not the gender claim, another stooge of the Vatican. Here is Paul Crouch again. We can still see that long lapel of a female, because that's a female pant right there. It's not male. The lapel is too long, trying to deceive us and give us an illusion of a male pelvic region, but it's not, because these people are not preaching God in any way, shape, or form, because the devil, like I said, is a very intelligent human being. And I want to ask you guys this question. If you wanted to say things about yourself, if you wanted to preach about yourself, would you preach yourself as being very bad? If you had that kind of position, nobody talks bad about himself. We all say good things about us, right? So that's what the devil is doing. He's preaching about his own self. He's not going to give himself a bad name. So he's making other people preach and make preach in such a way to make you feel that that he's not the bad guy when he is the evil one. So here's Paul Crouch and whosoever this hypnosis or hypnostress is, preaching the fake gospel, because they're not preaching God in any way. They are preaching to you a false God. They're actually preaching you to hate God. If you've been listening to them for a very long time, you'll get to notice that sooner or later if you're really looking for the truth. Some other pictures of Paul Crouch here is still looking at that long lapel here, because Paul Crouch is 100% female. This pant is set way too high into the torso of the body, and the navel has to sit right around here based on this body structure, because Paul Crouch is 100% female and not a man in any way. I think we already showed you that picture. Yes, I think we already showed you this picture. Here's Paul Crouch, and you can see even from the suit that that she's wearing, that she has that arch in the back from the suit. Even though this picture is not very clear, but you can look and see that this is a woman right here, and the long butt of a female, as you can tell right there, it travels all the way and starts ending right here, because Paul Crouch is 100% female. Let's get into another picture. We already showed you that. Here is right here. You can still see that long pubic region of a woman sitting, because Paul Crouch is 100% female. We already showed you that again. Here's him with Matt Crouch. This picture is not really clear, but you can still see that this is the long, humongously long pelvic region of a female sitting right here. This cannot be the pelvis of any male. Where is the location for the scrotum right here? We can't find it, because this is female. This is the long pelvic region of a female sitting down, all the way down. You can't find any sign of any scrotum right here, because it's all woman. It's the same thing that Matt Crouch has over here. You can see they're all spreading from the sides, because they're all females. Let's get into some more pictures of Matt Crouch so we can wrap up this video. Here's Matt Crouch when Paul Crouch was praying over her and trying to hand over TBN to him, because she was getting old and was directed by the Vatican to do so. And Joseph Prinks, another devil who preaches from the pulpit right here. The first time I ever heard Joseph Prinks preach, I thought he was a rock star right there. I'm like, which kind of Christian looks like a rock star like this? Well, true or not, sooner or later found out that they're all working together. We'll take a closer look at Joseph Prince in the future as well. We don't know what he or she is. And here's Matt Crouch sitting, and you can still see this is the cute thigh cross of a female, because Matt Crouch is 100% female and acting like one. If you can tell from this picture, even though it's very blurry, you can see the mannerisms, because the way a female acts is in her bones. All right, She doesn't just act the way she does, because a lot of people will try to, let's say for example, some homosexual men will try to act effeminate, but after a while you start seeing that this is a man because they don't have the genetics or the bones for it, which is the right word. So the way the female acts is all in her bones. The way she walks, talks, giggles, laughs is because of her bone structure. And no man can do that. And this is what Paul Crouch is doing, acting like a woman because she is one. You can tell from this acute thigh cross because she has a wide pubic arch. Matt Crouch is 100% female, just like her father as well, or her mother we should call Paul Crouch. And here's Matt Crouch again, sitting, still spreading like a woman is, from underneath the elbows all the way down. Acute leg cross because Matt Crouch is 100% female. Here is Matt Crouch again. Even though this picture is very blurry, you can tell that the cute Q angle right here is below the crotch. You can see how the thigh of Matt Crouch looks, the pencil thighs that a female has. So a female has, you know, a very thicker upper thigh, and then as it gets towards the knees, it starts to form into a pencil kind of shape. And this is what Matt Crouch has here, because Matt Crouch is 100% female. And Donnie McCloughan here, which a lot of black people listen to, did not tell you the truth about this. They did not even whisper anything in your ears to let you know that this is not the gender that they claim. And they claim they're worshiping God. They're leading you to the devil. Here's Matt Crouch again. We're going to show you this picture. You can see that this is the acute spreading, because every woman starts spreading from underneath her elbows because her pubic, her pelvis and her hips start getting wider from underneath the elbows. And this is what Matt Crouch is exhibiting here, and crossing the legs with the long you know, lapel that starts very high up, because Matt Crouch is 100% female, just like mother in Paul Crouch. Let's go to some other pictures here. I'm still Matt Crouch exhibiting the same tendencies of an acute leg cross, just like her wife right here, because they're both females, right? Acute leg cross because of a wide pubic arch. That's what Matt Crouch is also exhibiting here, because he's 100% female. Let's go to another picture where to show you that. You can see that Matt Crouch is spreading from underneath the elbows like all females should, because of the wider pelvis and the wider hips. As you can see right here, this hips on the length of the cross is extended so far outside the body, wider than the shoulders, which no man can ever have wider hips than his shoulders. But Matt Crouch has it because Matt Crouch is female and not male. Let's go to, I think I moved too fast. We just wanted to show you some pictures of all these deceivers so you guys can know. Here's Pat Robertson with Matt Crouch, and he never for one day mentioned or told you that this person is not the gender they claim. Yeah, because they're all stooges working for the Vatican. And we've featured this guy over here. What's his name again? Let me try to recall the name of this fellow. So the person's name is Carl Lentz. He's a pastor of Hillsong church somewhere. I don't know where that is, but we featured him on, or her rather, let me put it right, on one of the videos on Tricks of the Estrade channel, which you can look into. Well, what we're trying to say is that here's a whole bunch of, you know, transgenders, or let me say mutilated people, because there's no such word as a transgender. You can't change from gender to gender. You're mutilated female or male. So here's a mutilated female, and here's another mutilated female. We have to take a look at Joseph Prince. We don't know if he or she is the gender we claim, but we'll take a look, and if she comes, or if he comes up short, we'll let you guys know. What we're trying to say here is that they never told you that there are transgenders. How can they possibly tell you the truth? Because if the foundation is a lie, that means everything else is a lie. That's just the way lies operate. Let's go into some other pictures. And here is Benny Hinn. Benny Hinn with Paul Crouch. And they never told you that your favorite preacher here is not the gender they claim. So does that mean that every miracle that Benny Hinn has made you guys to believe in is actually real? It's all false. You've been watching a show, watching some movie actors on stage preaching or telling you about you know, that they're talking about God. And you can tell from all these window paintings behind, because this is all paintings which we have on the stained glass windows of Roman Catholic churches. And this is all proof of the Vatican just showing you that they run the Trinity Broadcasting Network. But because you're not paying attention, you're not looking at all those details. Let's go to some other pictures. And here is Matt Crouch with Billy Graham, which we have covered on the video called The Curse of Veganism, which we expect that anybody who's watching this video would have watched before watching this, because it's more like a continuation series of trying to tell you how about health and fitness, so you can understand the truth about and reality about your world, so you can live very healthy lives. And you know, Billy Graham is not the gender that he claimed, because we featured him on Tricks of the S-Trade, and we are featuring Paul Crouch, sorry to say right now, because these are all females, 3 females right here. Not one of them is a man. All right, let's go to another picture. Here is well, we just pulled up this picture because you're gonna be seeing TD Jakes on a video that we are gonna be sharing about all the people who always show up on TBN, and we featured specifically right here Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett is not the gender they claimed, and Mr. TD Jakes here should have told you the truth, but they did not tell you so. So how can you expect that anything that's coming out of this man talk is the truth? TD Jakes I mean his words are hypnotic. Even with me, you know, if TD Jakes comes and I just have to like switch off the audio because I don't want to hear this man talk. This man can convince anybody in the world. He can convince anybody. I really mean it. So don't sit close to this man. He's gonna take you someplace else. I don't want to even be near him. This man is hypnotic. But all the same, these are all preaching. They're not preaching the truth. I'm just showing you who they are. Let's go to another picture. How about Creflo Dollar? Creflo Dollar is also on TBN. He never told you that Paul Crouch and Matt Crouch are not the gender they claim. There's somebody who called it, what's the name they usually give Creflo Dollar? They call him the Great Pimp, because he talks, walks, and acts like a pimp. That's the truth. Let's go to some other pictures right here. And we've already featured Matt Hagee, right? Matt Hagee has also been featured because they are not the gender they claim. So all 3 females right here with Matt Crouch having an arch in the back, because they're all females. And look at that hand cross. It's so high up because the arms are not long enough to be male. So high up above the pubic region, because this is how a female will cross her hands in front of a body. It's not going to be low below the crotch like a male would naturally do it, because this is a female arm cross, because these are all females. All right. Okay. Some other pictures. Is that the end of the picture? Yeah, that's the end of the picture for Matt and Paul Crouch. Well, let's play one quick video just to show you how they tell you lies every day on your TV screen, and all the people who show up on TBN who haven't told you the truth that Paul and Matt Crouch are not the gender they claim, because they're all agents of the Vatican. So I'm going to play this short video, but you guys don't have to listen to anything that's said. I just want to show you the pictures so you guys can see how the Vatican is busy lying to us all the time. So as this plays, you would notice that in this Praise the Lord symbology that's being played right here, you notice that they show you a globe. All right. Now, the one thing that if these guys were telling you the truth, the so-called pastors, the one thing they should always try to make you know in every programming that they tell you or show you on TV is that the world's not a globe, because it's flat. We see it with our eyes every day. Okay? But they don't teach you that. So here is showing you all the great performers that come on that show, Praise the Lord. Like I said, there's something very deep I have to share about the word, about the Bible, that will blow your mind. But I don't know how to begin to do that, because I need people to get the book. Because when you get the book, then you have a basic foundation, because it's very, very deep. I don't know how to explain it. It's very, very deep. So let's keep on playing this video. You can see here all the great performers: Joseph Prince, Josh Alston, whole bunch of cast and crew. And here is I think that's Tyler Perry. Let me move back a little bit further. Let's see who that was again. That's TD Jakes and what's his name, Steve Harvey. They all come on, you know, this praise the Lord show and keep on telling you lies. And I think that's what's his name again? Is it Israel Houghton right there? That's Israel Houghton, I think. Jesse Duplantis, and here is what's his name again called? What's the name of this actor called? Mr. T, I think so, from the A-Team. See all that cast and crew, and then they're showing you the globe right here falling. This is all like Vatican programming. It has nothing with truth, because they even should show you the globe. If they're telling you truth, they should show you that the world is actually flat as God created it and shows in the Bible. But they don't tell you all that. That means all these guys are telling you stories and lies. And let me just move the video a little bit faster so we can get to it, because I want you guys to see Kenneth Copeland. Look at all these actors right here. Look at all of them. Yep, they're all telling you lies. Let's move farther up down because we have no time to waste. This video is taking too long. I just want you guys to see Kenneth Copeland here on TBN. So all these guys are busy telling you lies day in and night. There is no truth in whatsoever they tell you. Because if they had any truth to tell you, they would have told you that the founder of TBN and his crew are not the gender they claim. But they are all here, and a lot of people are so deceived, and they still sit down to watch this day in and night. And no matter what we say, even after watching this video, some people will go watch TBN and still go to church and sit down because they're delusional like that. Oh, let's finish up this video. Let's get into Steve Furtick so we can wrap up this video real quick. As you see right here, Steve Furtick has a Q angle below the crotch. Steve Furtick of Elevation Church. He's the pastor of Elevation Church. You can still see this pyramid sign over here because he's clearly not of God. There's another stooge of the Vatican here preaching the fake gospel of Jesus Christ. Let's go to another picture of Steve Furtick. You can still see right here, he has a cute Q angle below the crotch because Steve Furtick is 100% female, and you can still see that thick thigh section because as all females always have, you know, a thicker middle section, rather to say. That's what Steve Furtick has because he's 100% female and not a man anyway. Here's another picture of Steve Furtick right here. Again, you can still notice this acute Q angle is below the crotch because he is not a man. It's a woman preaching a false gospel to you. Here's another, you can still see Steve Furtick here with that long butt of a female showing right here because the butt of a female starts way high up into the middle of the torso of the body, just below the rib cage and above the navel. That's where a female butt starts all the way down because Steve Furtick is 100% female, and they're lying to you that they're preaching to you the gospel. And his so-called wife here, these are two homosexuals preaching the gospel to you, and you actually believe they're telling you the truth. And a lot of people get confused and say, why does it matter? And some people who are that confused will say, why does it matter that two homosexuals preach the gospel? Well, the question you should answer is, were you produced by a homosexual relationship? If that's possible, then you can agree to these people preaching from the pulpit to you. And here is looking like an angel here. It says Elevation Church. It says, are you not entertained? I don't know, I just got this picture from the internet, so I just wanted you guys to know that. But you can see that this acute Q angle is below the crotch. We have some more pictures from Steve Furtick again. As you can see, the acute Q angle is below the crotch. As you can tell by the hourglass figure that the pastor of Elevation Church with the pyramid sign of the Vatican here, because she is actually female, as you can tell by looking at that face, that's no man up on that pulpit. They've jacked her up lately now with a lot of testosterone, so she has a lot of muscles and wears t-shirts, and a lot of people get confused and say, oh, look at that, that's a man. Well, you can tell from this picture that they didn't jack her up that much earlier. So what happened now? People should ask questions. Look, whatever is presented in front of you, you should ask questions. Don't just accept it. All right, that's why God gave you a brain, so you can think about things and ask questions, and not just be accepting whatever you've been told like a zombie. All right, let's go another picture of Steve Furtick here. You can see this is clear as night and day. If we should end this picture right here, or end the video, sorry, right here, This should suffice. As you can see, that Steve Furtick here is 100% female. Let me try to blow this picture up so you guys can see it. See that? The acute Q angle is below the crotch. You can see that he starts spreading from underneath the elbow and gets wider, and here the pelvic region just starts jutting out, and you can see this acute Q angle is below the crotch because Steve Furtick is 100% female and not a man. It's not your pastor. Like we've talked about before, we've been called to receive the gospel of Yehoshua. We've not been called into ministry or to preach. The gospel of preaching, the ministry of preaching, were given to the apostles, which were with Yehoshua at the time when he was alive, including Paul the apostle after. For more of that, get our book and you get all that interesting information. We show you facts because we speak facts all the time. Let's go to another picture of Steve Furtick here. You can still see Steve Furtick here is with Charlemagne. Charlemagne is a presenter, think on radio, on TV. What is someone who's preaching the gospel doing with someone who actually doesn't even believe in the gospel? But I think Charlemagne says he's Muslim or something. What are they doing? What are they talking about? What are you guys going to be talking about if it's not related to business? Because it doesn't look like a business meeting here. But you can see that Steve Furtick has that wide pubic arch here that a female have because Steve Furtick is 100% female and not a man in any way. Let's go to another picture of Steve Furtick here. You can still see the hourglass figure and the acute Q angle is below the crotch. I'm trying to fake you with this low because with this one, there's this what do they call this? I think there's a pant or jeans that women wear that it's called. Is it I don't know what the name is. Is it low hips or what is the name? What is the name? Is it low riders or low hips? I don't know, but I think this is what Steve Furtick is wearing, trying to fake the male waist, but it still shows that this acute Q angle is below the crotch because she's 100% female and not a man in any way. Steve Furtick again still showing you that acute Q angle below the crotch because Steve Furtick is 100% female and not a man in any way. They started jacking her up by now with a lot of testosterone, but you can still tell that this is all female. Let's go to another picture. The long butt of a female he is showing is Steve Furtick. You can still see it's all the way down. This acute Q angle is below the crotch, all the way down the butt, long butt of a female because Steve Furtick is 100% female. And here, I wonder what he was doing here, but he's in one of his, I think, churches, and you can see that this pelvis is tilted forward. There's an arch in that back because Steve Furtick is 100% female and not a man in any way. Been lying and deceiving those who want to be deceived, because you can only be deceived by these people because you do not ask questions. You've been in church for maybe 10, 20, 30 years, praying the same prayer that you prayed when you were 10 years old, and you're praying it when you're 60 years old, and you still don't have answers, and you still won't get up and ask questions and say, what is going on here? Is this God for real or is he not? Because God is in none of those churches. That's just the truth. If you've been getting your prayers answered, you've been getting your prayers answered by something else. It hasn't been God in there. Let's go to another picture of Steve Furtick, and you can still see this hourglass figure and acute Q angle is below the crotch because Steve Furtick is 100% female and not a man anyway. Trying to mimic, I don't know what he's mimicking here. He's trying to mimic the cross or whatever, which is not a sign of any believer. The cross is not a sign of any believer. Why would you be carrying something around that reminds you regularly that the person that you love the most died? Is that a good memory? And celebrating that, you should be celebrating his life because he's alive. He's not on the cross anymore. All right. I think that's the end of the pictures that we have for Steve Furtick. And please, people, get our book. We're not just trying to sell you, but because let me just show you the strikes that was landed on Tricksofthestrade, so you can know that even though we're in Tricksofthestrade 2 now, and the Vatican will still find some way to shut us down. Okay, they haven't eventually landed a third strike on Tricksofthestrade yet, but they might do that sooner or later. Even though we've had 3 strikes already, starting with the Selena Q video, the and the real gender, not transgender, part number 4, and also with which other video they landed a strike on. Let me get into that and see that. They landed a strike on the Ivan Ego video. They landed a strike on the Ivan Ego video in which we talked about Hotel Rwanda, that it was a Vatican movie, that they were actually the people who caused the Rwandan genocide. They will find some way to shut us down one way or the other until our website comes up. So that's why we want you to get the book. It's very, very important that you get the book. I don't want to keep sounding like a broken record, because like I've said before, we're trying to put real information and real history in your own hands, something that you can pass on to your generation so that all our history is not lost forever. So please do that. All our information and contact information is on the screen, and get our book. All right. With that, we've come to the end of today's video. I'm sorry if it was a long video, but we just had to tell you the truth so you can know the truth about your life, and that your the heart doesn't pump your blood. Your blood is a living organism itself. All right. All what the heart does is produce an electric charge that reverses the flow of blood in your body, so the blood can flow backwards and forwards every second and every minute, and nourish your body with nutrients. That's all what's happening when your heart contracts. It's releasing that electricity into the whole entire body for the blood to be able to flow back and forth, or oxalate as we call it. So with that, we've come to the end of today's video. I hope you guys learned something. So if you're subscribed to the channel, that means you've already been on Tricks of the S-Trade too, because most of our old videos on Tricks of the S-Trade. So if you're in Tricks of the S-Trade too, that means you have watched most of the videos on Tricks of the S-Trade, because we're not going to be repeating any of the old videos here. If eventually the Vatican shuts us down, shuts Tricks of the S-Trade down, because you have just one more strike to land on that particular account within a 3-month period, and then the channel goes down, then that happens. If you're interested in watching the Selena Q video, which they landed a strike on this particular which they landed a strike early on, please look for the Bono video on the channel. It will give you instructions on how to watch that, so you can watch the Selena Q video, in which we tried to show to the Hispanic world that Selena Q was not the gender that she claimed. And with that, we come to the end of today's video. Stay tuned, and we'll try to make more videos and give you more information, because we're all about giving you more information and giving you the truth. And get a book, save and get for it. It's very, very important that you do so, because we do not know how long any of our videos are going to be anyway, because they might just shut them all down. All right, so get a book and get real history. With that, we leave you with these words: look with your eyes, but see with your brain. I'll talk with you guys later.